drama. A special hour with Karamo continues. So before the break, we met 35-year-old Quentin and his mother, Veronica. Quentin and Veronica are desperate to find out if a man named Joe is Quentin's biological father. Quentin blames his mother, Veronica, and Joe for not getting this DNA test done years ago. But before we talk to Joe, Karamo, I mean, do you think that you've been able to connect with Quentin?
I do. You know, Quentin's at a really amazing spot in his life, especially as a man, where he is saying, I want answers. I want to confront the things that have been going on in my life. And that takes a lot of courage.
That's because he had a strong mama there.
Veronica, you know what? I'm going to give you that. You are a strong mother. You are a strong mother, and he did learn.
I had to do what I had to do.
He learned.
I sacrificed for my son.
Veronica, no one is taking.
He didn't tell you I sacrificed for
Veronica,
I love
you hear me
out. I love you for that.
But all
that doesn't take away from the fact that I was denied something that every young boy should have.
Everything he's needed in his life.
Veronica.
Even up until today.
That was your choice.
Veronica.
That was your choice, though.
All right. I need you to hear me, Veronica. I understand, and your son is acknowledging the sacrifices you made. We hear it, we see it, and we know it. But what we need you to know right now is that this is a moment for you to do what you've always done as a mother and step back and be there for your son, because he is trying to step up and to be the man you raised him to be. He needs to heal and he needs to move forward. And Maury's about to give us some results that are going to help us do that.
The big question is, at various times in his life, he did not know who his father was, correct?
Correct. Me and Joe met in the summer of 1984. I was seeing somebody else. Me and Joe had a one-night stand. Being a black woman raised in the 60s and the 70s is totally different than the generation my son came up in. So when something happened, and you have to understand the dynamics between me getting pregnant and returning home with a second baby as a single woman, having to go back to my mother's house. When I showed up pregnant back home, my mother gave me an ultimatum. You're going to marry the baby daddy or you're going to get out my house. And when he came to the house, my mother looked at him and said, you're going to marry him. And that's what I did, because you didn't talk back to my mother. So when mama said do something, that's what you did.
That's what happened. What I don't understand is...
That's still not an excuse
why didn't you and Joe and Quentin live together for more than a couple of years?
Because Joe was slow. Joe was slow then. Joe was slow throughout the last 35 years. Joe's slow right now. We got married. He left me in the same house my mother was telling me to get out.
He found you all those years ago.
Veronica.
And then you left?
Yes, Maury.
Why did you, after all these years, connect with Joe on Facebook just a few months ago?
I hit a point in my life back in November, and I went back and I said, how did my life end up here? Had nothing to do with Quentin. I just was trying to get answers to where my life had ended. And I retraced my steps and ended back up on Joe. And I said, wonder how Joe's doing. Every time I thought of Joe, I looked for Joe. Joe wasn't looking for us. If Joe was so concerned about
selfish
Quentin.
behavior again.
If Joe was so concerned about Quentin, Joe should have been looking for Quentin.
Do you think that Joe is Quentin's father?
Yes, I do.
You didn't way back, did you?
No, I didn't, because it was a one-night stand, Maury.
What made you come to the conclusion now? You think they look alike?
When me and Joe reconnected back in November, after I looked him up on Facebook, we talked that first night. And while we were talking, I pulled up some baby pictures. And it was one particular picture that I pulled up of Quentin that he looked identical to Joe.
But after Quentin was born, you thought that the fella you were going with was the father, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then...
But then she told me she broke up with that guy, so how's she going to be going with him and broke up with him too?
What did you tell Quentin when you found out that the other guy, through the DNA, was not his father?
Originally, I told him, I said, I think he botched up the DNA test, but it came back saying 0. Remember, Maury, I grew up in the 60s and the 70s. Things that we go through as black women back then, and even us now, we have a good way of repressing things down. We have a good way of keeping secrets, because that's the way.
It's not going to help the situation, though. That's not going to help the situation, because here it comes.
Shut up,
now,
Quentin.
35 years later, we're still trying to figure out who my father is.
I'm still the mother here.
Like, no, I'm not going to shut up. No.
I am still
this is my
the
time.
mother here.
This is my time.
No, he asked me a question, boy.
He asked you a question, and you're not giving the answers that we all want.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
What's the answer?
Like you're sort of beating around the bush. We want the answers, Mom.
Okay. Before we do that, I want to talk to Joe. Joe comes to us from Bel Air, Maryland, an area I know well. Joe, what did you think last November when Veronica contacted you?
He didn't recognize
Maury,
me.
I was shocked. I was shocked.
He didn't recognize me.
And I didn't know what she wanted because I haven't heard from her in so long.
Did you?
And I understand I haven't called her because I can't call somebody if I don't know where they at.
Joe, have you always
Yes.
thought that you were Quentin's father?
I had that feeling, Maury. I had that feeling because
If
like
you had
I
that feeling, you
told-
should have never stopped. You should have never stopped
How
looking
could
for me. Like,
I couldn't find you, and
that's an
I
excuse.
didn't know how to reach your mother.
I got 4 kids. I will never let them go a day without me.
Quentin.
Never.
Quentin, I want you to know something. Joe, haven't
Not
you
one.
carried a picture of Quentin around for you for the last 35 years?
Yes, I have.
You carried a picture. What about carrying me? How about that?
If I knew where you
I
was at, I would
got a
probably
1-year-old.
be
I
there.
see him every
Nobody
day
care
after
about
work.
the
I see my 1-year-old every day after work.
Every day.
I pick him up.
Okay.
That's my world. My
All
kids
right.
are my world.
Exactly.
Quentin.